Welcome to week 4 of Broken and Beloved. This week, we will take a look at the parable, the prodigal son. It's another one of Jesus' teaching stories. And it talks about two brothers and how they relate to their father and to each other. Luke uses the story to invite us into a paradox of arrogance and gratitude. We have a very familiar story, the story of the prodigal son, or, as we'll see, the prodigal sons. This parable is the third parable that Jesus tells to defend his practice of accepting the tax collectors and the sinners, of sharing table fellowship with them. He tells a story about a sheep that is lost, about a coin that is lost, and now about sons that are lost. The pattern is well established. Something is lost, and then it is recovered. And the restoration prompts a celebration. There is a joy in which there is an extravagance that is expressed. This story is so beloved, and I think part of what is attractive about it is that we find ourselves in this story. Whether we are the wayward person that wanders away from God and from our family, and then returns at a later date and is restored, or whether they were the faithful, long-suffering person who then finds it difficult to accept others that are restored. The story is told in a way that we are brought in, and then we are persuaded to embrace hospitality. Hospitality as a God value. Let's look at the Father. The Father is all about restoration. His youngest son treats him as though he was dead. Give me the inheritance. It's as though you're already dead, so give me the money. He dishonors his father. And then, when he goes and he takes those resources and he wastes them away on living that is dishonorable, it's as though he's dishonored twice. The father has every ground to ignore his son, or at least, when he comes back, to try to make him feel guilty or bad for his life decisions. But instead, we have this extravagant response. He picks up his skirts, he runs across the field. He exhibits behavior that we would say is a little, not becoming of his position in life. And yet he can't do anything else. He is so filled with joy that his lost son has returned. He has to have a feast. He has to celebrate. When we look at the older son, we see that he too dishonors his father. Oh, not in the same way. He dishonors his father at the moment that he refuses to come to the feast for his younger brother, who he has disowned himself from. He has distanced himself. He no longer calls him brother. It's your son, he says. He's enraged, and he refuses to join in the celebration. And in that, he becomes prodigal. He becomes dishonoring. And he too is lost. The father's invitation to the older son is just like the younger. It is extravagant. Instead of judging, instead of making him feel guilty, he tries to persuade and convince. He invites him into the feast. And the story ends there. The story is ultimately an invitation to the Pharisees and to us. In the face of God's welcome and generosity and hospitality, do we seek to restore those who have been pushed away and lost? And when they are reincorporated into the body, do we celebrate? Do we give thanks? Are we exuberant in our joy? Or do we dishonor? Do we turn prodigal? And do we refuse the grace that God so willingly gives? Some questions for us to think about. Thank you for joining me this week as we look at our broken and beloved text from the Gospel of Luke. May God bless you as you live and grow in your faith.